Good morning. It is time to skip the BS. Time for Undisputed. Time to talk the bombshell news of the night. Guess who upstaged World Series Game 3, Monday Night Football, and a packed slate of NBA games last night? The other NBA team in Los Angeles, the stepchildren to the Lakers. The Los Angeles Clippers won the night by finally landing James Harden.
You know, a little technical difficulties happen every now and then.
That's what James Harden does to people. Go ahead.
I just don't get it, Skip. I really don't get what the Clippers are doing here. I get James Harden wanted to get back to L.A. I get that James Harden wanted to play with Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. But at the same time, how many times have we put James Harden in a picture with a big three? You know, it was KD, it was him, KD, and Kawhi. It was
Kyrie,
it was him, KD, and Russ. It's him, Embiid, and it's like every time you think, oh, another big three, another big three, another big three. I just don't see it working, Skip, and I don't see this getting them over the hump. And then again, what are the Clippers doing? Because all of these guys, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook are free agents after this season. Free agents, Skip. So you're doing all this for a one-year rental. Yep. You traded away all your picks. You traded away all your future. Like, I mean, if it doesn't work this year and these guys don't resign, you are up the creek without a paddle. So, I mean, I guess I like it for what James Harden can do. James Harden averaged 21, 6, and 10 last year. He can be a great player in the National Basketball Association, but I don't see this getting them over the hump. You got another ball-dominant guard who won't be the best player on the team. So he needs the ball a ton. He can assist the ball. He can pass. He can distribute. But then what do you do with Russell Westbrook? You already saw what happened with the Lakers last year. You can't bring him off the bench, so he has to start. And so it just seems like mismatched parts now.
Agreed. Go.
You know, I like this move for the Clippers in a lot of different ways. I think when you look at it, let's start at the top, Skip. As I said to you several months ago with Rachel Nichols, he's going to be moved. It took a couple games into the season to be moved, but at the top of the season, it's gonna happen because you're not going to give up, number one, as much as the Clippers gave up to get him in the middle of the season. Not gonna happen. So the value decreases, as you know, Skip, as time goes along. So the best thing for the Sixers to do at that point in time is take the deal that's on the table, which is an expensive deal for an older player, but he still can play. Richard mentioned the big threes in the past. Okay, if Chris Paul, we could start with OKC when they were younger. They went all the way to the wire. Young team. He didn't get moved because he couldn't play. He got moved because they couldn't afford him. So he goes to Houston. He then pairs up eventually with CP3. They go all the way down to the wire. Game 7, correct me if I'm wrong, Skip, against the Golden State Warriors. If CP3 stays healthy, we never know what could be the end of that. Now you move him on to Brooklyn. Brooklyn was just a mess. None of us could survive with the Brooklyn Nets in this situation. And at some point in time, he realized, after getting his way out of Houston, who wanted to rebuild, they moved him to Brooklyn like he wanted to go with his buddy KD. But then the whole Kyrie thing completely just went haywire to the point where it all started to fall apart for everybody in Brooklyn. He decided, hey, let me go try my luck in Philadelphia, team up with Tyrese Maxey, team up with Joel Embiid, Doc Rivers. I can do this. It didn't work out. Daryl Morey promised him something. Clearly, it didn't work out there. So he said, I tell you what, if we can't compromise and come to some sort of resolution, I want out. So then they said, well, we're not getting you out. So they played a back and forth game for a little bit. Now, when you look at it, he's moved to the Clippers, and you say, how can they coexist? Well, if you remember when he was in Brooklyn, Skip, he gave way. He decided to run the point. And Kyrie gave way to him and played the off-ball position. So when you look at it and you say, well, how can him, Westbrook, along with Paul George and Kawhi coexist in a certain lineup? Well, that's not for us to try to figure out. That's for the head coach in Ty Lue to figure out. And I'm sure they've already gone over enough scenarios to realize, okay, I'm in Phoenix. We play Phoenix. We play Denver. We got the Sacramento Kings, a young up-and-coming team, and we got the Los Angeles Lakers. we don't have enough horsepower on this team to battle and take a chance. Now, when you look at the odds that just came out, they're in the 5th position to win the NBA final. Obviously, the Celtics at the top. I don't see them far off from the Celtics. I like the move. They get PJ Tucker in this situation, a guy and a spotted three-point shooter, but a tough, tenacious defender who brings some energy to the table. So I don't mind it at all. I think it works wonders. And as far as the contract stuff go, I'm not worried about Steve Ballmer paying money. He'll go over the luxury tax 9 times if he need to.
And by the way,
but what I'm saying is,
go ahead.
Key, when does he become the problem? Like, you talked about all the moves that was made and all the times he went out.
It's not a problem. This is the NBA. This is what they do. They sign the contracts, and everybody talks about, well, Giannis signed this extension. Talk to me in 2 years when it doesn't work out. You talk about Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. This situation in Philadelphia also could impact Embiid's future when it's time for him to renegotiate. This is just the NBA. That's all it is. Look, he's not committing a crime by saying he doesn't want to play for a team. That's the cards that is dealt in the NBA.
He's just not committing.
Well, look, at the end of the day, he's not committing. But do organizations commit to players? Like, come on. That's just I'm not going to get caught up in, well, he's not committing to them. I'm not going to make James Harden the bad boogeyman because he doesn't want to play in Philadelphia. I'm not going to do it.
By the way, speaking of crimes, you mentioned Oklahoma City couldn't afford to pay him. Remember, well, it's because they wouldn't pay the luxury tax to keep James Harden and Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook together. I didn't get it. I'm from there.
Oh, yeah, that's
I'm
right.
Still, that's like the mystery of the world to me. But now back to James Harden. In honor of Halloween, the Clippers just fell into the worst nightmare they've ever been in. And they have lived in nightmares for years and years and years here in the shadow of the Lakers in Los Angeles. And I'm shocked that Keyshawn would applaud this move because you are the ultimate Lakers fan and you always talk down to the Clippers. And now you're speaking up to the Clippers.
But I didn't say, Skip, they was winning the NBA final. That's not what I said.
You said they're real close to the Celtics? Close to the Celtics?
They're close to the Celtics is all I said.
All right.
Lakers are close to the Celtics, too.
All right. If tonight for Halloween, if you want to dress up as somebody who will scare people, dress up as James Harden because he's now on his 4th team in 22 months. He has quit his way out of 3 teams, and I do not doubt that at some point fairly soon he'll want to quit his way even out of his home area, hometown here in Los Angeles, even though he's a happy camper as we speak. Let's see how long that lasts because now Ty Lue, for whom I have the utmost regard and respect, has the 2 biggest headaches in the NBA in the same backcourt, playing the same position. As Richard points out, both of them ball dominant. They need the basketball and they need minutes. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how Ty Lue is going to survive this year without needing another sabbatical like he once upon a time needed when he was coaching LeBron and company in Cleveland. It's going to wear him out and blow his mind because there's no way to keep both of these 2 happy. And both of his two wingmen, it's totally true. And by the way, would you believe, listen to this, over the last 7 seasons, guess who have ranked 1 and 2 in turnovers in the National Basketball Association? Russell Westbrook is 1 over 7 seasons combined. James Harden is 2 over 7 seasons combined. And Russell Westbrook over his career in the NBA has been the single worst three-point shooter in the league. So you're combining lethally high turnover, the highest turnovers, with the poorest three-point shooter, and a James Harden who will disappear in big moments worse than anybody we have ever seen. And I don't have enough show here to tell you about all of his flameouts in NBA playoffs and postseason, but let's just look back at last year in Philadelphia. They're up 3-2 over the Boston Celtics, and what happened in games 6 and 7 last year? Here's James Harden combined in those 2 games. 7 of 27, 1 of 11 from 3 with 10 total turnovers. 10 turnovers, he was a -40 in plus-minus in those 2 games. That is vintage, pure as you can get James Harden, and that's what the Clippers just acquired. It will not work. It will be an unmitigated disaster. And I can't wait to watch it, because you won't just watch it, you will rubberneck it. That's what you will, because I'll be watching every night. So will Keyshawn, because he will be quietly rooting for them to fall on their faces.
No, look.
And
Skip,
but what I'm saying is, I agree with Skip. I agree with Skip totally. I mean, when you, Keyshawn, you're trying to justify, dude, he wasn't happy there. He wasn't happy here. He wasn't happy here. Like, at some point, you got to look at him and say, maybe it's him a little bit. You sitting there saying, OKC couldn't afford him. Well, OKC should have stayed in Seattle with the Supersonics, but that's a story for a different day. But then you go to Houston and you say, well, they almost got something done. In OKC, they almost got something done, no question. But he keeps almost getting it done. And then the last two teams, he quit. He quit. He said, you said, well, nobody would have liked it in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Well, he asked to go to Brooklyn. And then you're like, nobody would have liked it in Philly. He asked to go to Philly.
I can't believe that you're sitting up here right now, Richard, saying that the man quit in Brooklyn. I can't believe that you said that. And you say almost in Houston. They went down to Game 7, okay? CP3 got hurt.
Almost.
He got a win. At the end of the day, no, he didn't win a championship. But as a veteran player, he did not want to rebuild. Who wants to rebuild? You don't want to rebuild as a veteran player. You want to be moved. Okay, they wanted him to stay in
Cleveland. They moved him.
They wanted him to stay in Houston. They offered him $150 million. He said, no matter how much money you give me, I don't want to be here on a reboot. So now they moved him to Brooklyn.
Where he wanted to go.
Yes, and Brooklyn fell apart. Fell completely apart.
And then they moved him. Where he wanted to go.
Yes. Yes. They eventually, everybody got out of Brooklyn. All three of them left. All three left.
And then they moved him where he wanted to go.
Yes, that is correct. They moved him. And then they moved him. And then they moved him. He said, I tell you what, you didn't do what you said we're going to do if I exercised in. He took it and he exercised in it. They decided to say, well, we're not going to extend you and we're not going to do this with your contract. So he said, I tell you what, you're lying to me in my face, so therefore I want to move on to somewhere else where I don't have to deal with you on a daily basis. And they moved him. That's just the reality. It's no excuse. It's facts. It's context being given with the conversation.
There's very little context, and you're ignoring the big picture of what he's been doing. Every time you're sitting there like, man, how did he get out of here? How did he get out of here? He wanted to go here. He wanted to go there.
He got out because he told him, Richard, I don't want to be here. As I said 2.5 months ago, that's what it's going to be. When I say to you, I don't want to be here, you're going to move me.
How many more times can he say, I don't want to be here?
He's done that 3 times.
I don't know. I don't know how many more times. I know this time they did exactly what I said they were going to do. The same thing New Orleans did with AD. AD didn't want to be there. They moved him. Okay? Dame Lillard didn't want to be in Portland. They moved him. This is the NBA, man. This is not the NFL. It's the NBA. They're going to move you.
All right, here's the other problem. In Philadelphia, at least James realized, because he does have some basketball genius about him, it's kind of shrewd genius. He's a shrewd operator, but he realized he could feed the beast and lead the league in assists, which he did last year as Joel Embiid won the MVP. This is a whole different situation because you have two wing players who also want the basketball, but not in pick and rolls so much as just iso ball. This is an iso ball team. It's your turn or my turn. Your turn or my turn. Or maybe it's my turn again.
No, it's been that way. But it doesn't mean that they can't transform into something different. You just mentioned that he led the league in assists in Philly. That's why I say to you, you say, well, everybody wants the ball. You don't lead the league in assists if you want the ball. You give the ball to the other team. That's how to the other teammates.
You got a whole lot of people who want the ball in different places.
But if I'm the facilitator, I know who to get the ball to, Skip.
Okay. He doesn't.
I'm not asking
the two best players. The two best players are wing players, and they're two-way wing players. So these guys play both sides of the ball. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play great on the defensive end. They play great on the offensive end. And they need the ball to be productive. Okay, James Harden does not. James Harden is liability. So a strength of this team was defense. So don't sit here and nod your head and try to say James Harden is playing great defense. If you say that, I'm walking off this show.
I never ever said he played great defense. I'm shaking my head because you say they got weaker by getting James Harden to run the point for him.
Because you can't, because him running the point does what? What is he doing that Russell Westbrook wasn't doing? Is he not going to distribute? Does Russell Westbrook not distribute the basketball? Were they not having success? Did Kawhi and PG not have 36 and 24 a couple games ago? Like, I'm trying to figure out how this makes them better, because there are two sides to the basketball court. You got to play offense, sure. Okay, great. But then you got to turn around and play defense. And in the playoffs, defense is going to matter. What are you going to do with Steph Curry? You're not going to do anything. You're going to get out there and get cooked. And then what are you going to do when you got Jokic and them boys coming down there? What are you going to do when you got Denver?
There's very few guards in the NBA that play defense, man, that handle the ball. Very few.
There's one named Drew Holiday who's in Boston.
Very few, Skip, that handle the ball that play defense in the NBA.
Yeah.
Now, we all sitting here trying to figure out what they're going to do. Why don't we just wait and see what they're going to do instead of trying to predict what they're going to do? Because we don't know.
At this point, it's predictable.
No, it's not.
It's extremely predictable.
You have no idea what they're going to do.
And back to Richard's first point, who's going to start for this team? Are you going to play both James and Russ together in the backcourt? Because I think that's an impossibility. So are you going to ask Russ to do what Darvin Ham asked him to do a couple of years ago with LeBron in L.A., come off the bench and try to win Sixth Man of the Year? Because Russ was never quite happy with that. And I don't think he's
It's all about approach, too, though.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't about LeBron James. It was about Darvin Ham. He didn't respect Darvin Ham. He didn't want to be coached a certain way by Darvin Ham. Now, when you approach it differently, you have a conversation with somebody like a Ty Lue, the message is different. If that's the way that they want to go. I don't know what they're going to do. We got to wait and see a couple games before we start to just say, well, they can't start together, they can't play together. We can't just do that. You can't.
What we can do is use empirical evidence that we have. So Russell Westbrook was asked to come off the bench for the Los Angeles Lakers. He did not like that for good reason. He's been a superstar in this league 4 times.
That's not why he didn't like it. That's not why he didn't like it. He didn't like the approach. He did not like the approach. I'm trying to get you something, man. I'm trying to get you something.
You're not giving me nothing.
I'm trying to get you
He did not
something.
like coming off the bench. He did not like coming off the bench. He said it. I can pull up many interviews where he said, this is different for me. I don't like doing this. It feels weird coming into the game like this. It feels weird not starting. He said this in interviews. So whatever you say, cool. He don't like it. So you're going to start Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi, PG, and who? PJ Tucker could start potentially.
No,
Zubac. I mean, either way, then what are you going to do when you run into the teams that are the best teams in the National Basketball Association? Like, how do you stop them with iso ball? How do you score with just iso ball? 4 iso ball players. It's going to be different.
I don't
3
foresee
is tough.
Ty Lue letting them run out there with just playing iso ball. Ty Lue is one of the top 3 coaches in the NBA, man, for a reason. He ain't just saying
They've been doing
play
iso ball now.
Basketball. Come on, man.
Keyshawn, you just said it's a players' league. You get to do whatever you want to do. You can quit your way out of wherever you want to go.
It's a players' league, but when you're talking about a Ty Lue, it's different. It's a different conversation. This is not some coach that was pushed up to be a head coach that they don't respect. This is what I think y'all fail to realize. There's a respect level that's on that bench, and it starts with Ty Lue.
No, I love Ty Lue, but even he will not be able to make this one work.
So James Harden didn't have respect for Doc Rivers. Is that what you're saying?
Man, Doc Rivers and James Harden butted heads night in and night out, man, since he was there. That is one of the main reasons. That's one of the main reasons he's not there right now.
Is that not a respected coach? Is that not a respected coach in the NBA?
It's respected
coach. So Ty Lue is a respected coach. Why is he butting heads with him, Keith?
You mean Doc Rivers is a respected coach? Ty Lue is certainly a respected coach, and so is Doc.
I'm saying both of them.
But just because you're a respected coach doesn't mean that me and you see eye to eye. I see eye to eye with Ty Lue. Okay, that's a certain peer group member of his differently than Doc Rivers. I'm just trying to give you some info, man.
So you're saying Ty Lue is a friend, so it's going to work out better.
It's a different respect level. It's just different. You have certain respect for defensive coordinators that you listen to that communicates with you differently than those that don't, that you like, man, I can't play for this guy. No matter what anybody says. It's just That is the way it is.
I hear you, Key, but I don't see Russell Westbrook wanting to come off the bench regardless of who asks him to.
I don't know that he's coming off the bench. I have no idea what they're going to do. I have
what
no
do you
idea.
think they're going to do? That's the point.
I would think I would think that you probably are going to start both of those guys in your backcourt.
Lord,
you're going to stay with the two wings, and you're going to go with Zubac. Then at some point, you will then set your lineup for the second unit, and maybe Westbrook becomes a part of the second unit, or James Harden becomes part of the second unit. No. I have to wait and see because we don't know. It just happened less than 24 hours ago.
That's what we do. We predict. We look.
Yeah, but I ain't gonna be a wrong predictor. I'm trying to be a right predictor. Right.
So how do you say this gets them closer to a championship? How do you justify that? What part of this you justifying this? Because James Harden's playoffs last year does not make you feel like, hey, this is going to get him over the hump.
But they're not asking. But they're not going to ask James to score 50, man. This ain't game one against the Celtics. They're not asking him to go score 50 when Embiid is hurt. That's not what they're asking.
I'm not saying they are.
So you just said how they gonna win a playoff game with James Harden? They're not asking him.
Win a championship, not a playoff game.
Well, whatever. Clippers ain't. As far as I'm concerned, they gonna eventually clip because it's the Clippers. I'm just telling you right now, they got a good team put together on their starting unit. That's what I can see. I can see that. You can too, Skip.
No, I cannot.
They got good players.
All I know is that just 2 weeks ago, I heard Russell Westbrook speaking about how I'm going to get back to being Russ because I could average a triple-double here, 21, 11, and 12. That's what he threw out there. That would be getting back to Russ. You don't think he has found a quote-unquote new home, a new heaven on earth with Ty Lue and the Clippers? That just went hellish on him before his he's the one sitting back shaking his head saying, oh, my God.
Because what you do with guys like that is you let them know that we getting ready to acquire James Harden and we working on this deal. And then you get his sign-off along with Kawhi's, along with PG's. Yeah. That's what you do. You don't just all of a sudden go get James Harden without talking to them. This is the NBA. This is not the National Football League or Major League Baseball. They communicate with their star players.
Money talks in the NBA, and right
now
they
communicate with their star players.
I highly doubt they communicate. They might have communicated with PG and Kawhi, but I highly doubt they called Russ and he was like, go ahead and bring James.
They communicate. All right, man. I guess they don't.
All right, I am going to give the Clippers this, and Richard did mention it, but as people know who have watched this show for a long time, I'm a big PJ Tucker guy because he will play his tail off on that one end of the floor every night. He might go the whole game and shoot no shots, but when he gets a hot hand from the corner three, he can get about as hot as anybody.
Boom, knock it down.
So I love that part of this as a silver lining to it, but the bulk of it will be a disaster of a nightmare. Up next, we turn our sights to Monday Night Football because there was a shocker going on there in a negative sense. What has happened to Devontae Adams? I used to think he was the best receiver in football.
What happened? Did you see the balls being thrown to him? You couldn't catch those.
No mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.